Right.
Yes. So, can everybody hear me clearly? And you can hear Geshe?
Yep.
So Tashi Dele from everyone? Okay. So thanks for bearing with us. The video and audio setup is always an evolving thing, but I think for today's purposes, we're okay. So first of all, Tashi Dele, greetings to everybody. Geshe hopes that your study of both Sutra and Tantra is going well. So Geshe wanted to say he felt that yesterday, for those of you who were there yesterday, was a bit of a whirlwind. He felt that he may have gone a little bit too quickly. The reason for this, of course, was because we had promised to start Vajrasattva in September. And so he wanted to make sure that we finished the Vajrayogini on time. So he says he apologizes for going at breakneck speed. Like we covered a lot, but it was fast. So Geshe says that although we went very quickly yesterday, he feels very happy just in terms of what we did cover and being able to finish like a general overview of the important topics related to Vajrayogini's practice. And so then, of course, the plan is combined with Vajrabhairava. Yeah. So according to the votes we had yesterday, and we got about 17 votes, and the vast majority want to do Vajrabhairava with a little bit of Vajrayogini's completion stage. So that's what Geshe is going to do. And so Geshe said, keep that in mind as we will continue with a little bit of Vajrayogini as we go with Yamantaka. So they'll come together. So then he says he's not like an expert or he doesn't know all of these topics so thoroughly, but he just does his best to cover as much as we can. So then, of course, today that brings us to today's topic, which is the commentary on the sadhana of solitary father Vajrasattva. And Geshe will give an overview of as much of this particular topic as he can. So we have to bring forth a mind of joy and awareness of our good fortune that we are able to encounter these teachings. So we'll begin with the recitation. So we'll do a short recitation, the praise to the Buddha, the mandala, and the refuge. Tumbo chom den de jin she ba zha chom ba yan da ba zo be sang ge ri ba dang shab su dem ba de wa she ba ji den ke ba ke bu do e ka lo gyor wa la na me ba la da mi nam gi tem ba song ge chom den de Jawa Shakya Tubala Chase Lo Chede Kyabsu Chi Ho. Sorry, Dave, I got a sound notification. Is the sound coming through okay, or is it like when we chant? It is? Okay, awesome. Okay, that's good. Thank you. Tumbo chomden de deshin chepa drachompa yang dapa zobe songye ripa dang shabsu denpa dewa shepa shiden chenpa chebu duwe kalo jurwa lana mepa lada mi namgi tumba songye chomden de pe jawa shakya tuba la chase lo chede kyasu ji ho Tenpa chonden de deshin shepa drachon bayan daba zobe sangye riba dang shabsu denpa dewa shepa jiden chenpa chebu dewe kalo jurwa lana mepa lada mi namgi tenpa sangye chonden de pe jawa shakya tuba la chase lo chede kyausu chi Short mandala offering. Again.
Yeah.
Kyoporwa.
Yeah.
Sa ji pege joshi meto cha ri ra lin shi ni de gyamba di sangye shindo mi de bo wa gi choku nanda shi la che pa sho i dang guru ratna menda la ka ni rya ta ya mi. Refuge and bodhicitta. Kedang sogi chenam la jangcho bardu dani kyao su chi dagi chenyen gi be sunam gi jola penjir sangye drubar sho. Kedang sogi chenam la jangcho bardu dani kyao su chi dagi chenyen gi be sunam gi jola penjir sangye drubar sho. Chedan sogi chenam la jangcho bardu dani gyabsu chi dagi chenyen gibe sonam gi jola penjir sangye jobar sho.
뭐야, 다들이 나죠. 뭐다 밀리자 아침부터 내가 저때 조사 드유대다 내가 얘나 면아 지레디가레스.
So, of course, in terms of our precious human life, in order to be able to seize its essence, then we need to understand at least a little something about the purification of obscurations and the accumulation of merit.
다 녀수서건데 다 야주나 왔던 도레테네 던도 이나요 다 개와테스테도 사야 거가 야라 왔 이나요 다 아니 이나요 다 조사 드유던 드리가 레바티 저 있다.
So our current situation allows us to do that. If we think about the three unfortunate realms, for example, out of those three unfortunate realms, the animal realm is kind of the least unfavorable, and they might be able to occasionally do an act of compassion or something positive, but they don't have kind of the intelligence and presence of mind as well as the access to engage in the practices of accumulation and purification thoroughly.
다 zukozumega 라이나요 니가 될 거의 되와 다시 대셔 전에 될 처전이라 오 코로프게 소사죠
And if we think to the higher realms, for example, if you think of the devas inhabiting the form and the formless realm, because of the intensity of the pleasure or bliss that they are always experiencing, they don't have like sort of the impetus, the calling to engage in the practices of accumulation of merit and purification of obscurations extensively.
다 던딜을 따와이나 다 알아서 다 못해 야수 대이자 다 메일레바티가 다 조사 아주 가르 먹이 가르 땜버 제와이나 다 제토야고 같이 뭐지 알아.
So we are human beings, and because we are human beings, we have the faculties that means that this is really the very sort of best situation and opportunity with which to accumulate merit and purify negativities and obscurations.
다 디파도 드발리타 예테지 알아. 다 예테지 데 가르에서는 코로스다 녀보 베제토나 So there
is sort of one positive side to negativities and obscurations. And the positive sides to those negativities and obscurations is that if we engage in purification, they can slowly diminish and eventually cleared away completely. They can be cleared away completely. And like Vajrasattva, whose holy body is completely separated from defilements, we can reach a purified state.
어다 세지가 놀다 쏴요 이나 다 체면을 종아서 토야를 뭐 또지 베게도나.
And so the other thing too is that it is said that even these five activities of immediate retribution, so somebody emailed me about this, saying that, Kedrup, can you please say the five heinous crimes? Because that's what I really understand. So you'll have to tell me if you folks prefer the five activities of immediate retribution or the five heinous crimes. Anyways, these five heavy negative karmas, even those can be purified through this practice.
여기도 와서 어다 던지지 이사 던지고 배 통이라 다 가세 더다 도지 셈바 코로가 내내라 ngal dipa do jawa kanga tsonga so ya ta shla do ma sune ni ba ke yo go yo shi pe da te la kan do tsuma chi ta ma number te ya res do je se be kan do tsuma chi ma te ya ra was number te tsuma te ya te dipa do jawa kanga tsoma so ne la shla kanga ta do tsoma so ya shla kanga ni pa kanga ngal te yo shi pe da te number res.
So Vajrasattva's holy aspect, right, his holy body in the various aspects of his practice, these arose to kind of give us the confidence that through his blessings, the complete purification, the wiping away of all negativities and obscurations is possible, that a completely purified state is possible. So he is kind of the deity. Vajrasattva is the deity embodiment of the complete clearing away of negativities and obscurations. That's one way to conceptualize him. And he displays this holy aspect and its benefits like the sun or the moon, right, whose light is available to every single sentient being without distinction or prejudice. But if we're a narrow-minded person, right, and we keep all of the windows and doors in our house closed and the sunlight or the moonlight cannot penetrate, then Vajrasattva doesn't have a way of helping us. Yeah. So to really have the opportunity to get in touch with this practice and use it as a means with which to purify negativities as well as accumulate merits, this is a very precious and fortunate thing. So we mustn't lose sight of that. So as a preliminary, we're just going to do a brief meditation to bring forth refuge and bodhicitta. So just take a moment to settle the mind and to bring the four elements into balance. So really try to visualize and also contemplate self, others, the features of the environment, whether the mountains, the grounds, the fence, the walls, all of these are empty of true or inherent existence. And imagine that from within that sphere of emptiness, there arises a Buddha field, a pure abode, which Vajrasattva will come to inhabit.
And
And then imagine that arising in that Buddha field is Vajrasattva, his holy body, white in color, one face, two hands, and so forth. And gazing up towards Vajrasattva, imagine that on the ground level with us are all 6 types of beings, but having human bodies, looking upwards with faith and devotion. So thinking with the fears of samsara, faith in the deity, and the benefits of the practice of purification, they place their hopes in Vajrasattva. And remember the uncommon Mahayana refuge combined with the common causes of fear and faith. We add the mind of great compassion and lift that up to the objects of refuge. And then, connected with our motivation to practice Tantra, bring forth bodhicitta, the mind of enlightenment. Think, I will achieve the resultant, the enlightened state of Buddha Vajrasattva in order to be able to accomplish the welfare, the purpose of all sentient beings. Imagine that from the heart of Vajrasattva, white light rays and nectars appear, and they enter us and all sentient beings, completely purifying our negativities and obscurations. So think in this way, all negativities, obscurations, illnesses, and obstacles have been completely washed and cleared away. So a brief motivation in any case.
So
if we really see ourselves as precious, if we have compassion for ourselves, want the best thing for ourselves, how do we actually go about achieving the state of Vajrasattva? A commentary on the sadhana can reveal a little bit about that to us. So I was asking Geshe where this where this particular sadhana came from. And he's like, it's the best one we found. Where it came from isn't important, but I do remember now. It comes from Gyume Monastery. This is the sadhana used by Gyume Monastery. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna read through the sadhana, and of course I'll read to you in English what we're going through as we go. So what Geshe-la's just read out is the 10 directions Buddhas, blessings of holy body, speech, mind, qualities, and enlightened activities, when in particular that of solitary father Vajrasattva, in order to purify the 3 poisonous afflictions, negativities, and obscurations, along with their imprints of all sentient beings, this supreme method. So Geshe said, of course, nominally, all fully enlightened Buddhas have, these powers and qualities that we mention. But the Buddhas before their enlightenment, due to the particular aspirations and prayers that they said, they may possess particular qualities in like a very preeminent way, in a very special way, we could say. So Vajrasattva's holy body, holy speech, and holy mind are manifesting in such a way that engagement with them is a particularly effective, right, is a particularly effective remedy for clearing away negativities and obscurations. So what I'm just reading out to you is what is known as the Yigchung, what Geshe is reading out. This is the Yigchung. Yigchung literally means small letters. So these are the instructions for the sadhana, but we don't recite this when we do the practice. So the next line says, with the motivation of bodhisattva, of bodhicitta and refuge, visualize the field of, so visualize the Buddha field, or visualize the objects of refuge. So one thing that we should say here is that actually going for refuge and even meditating on refuge, this doesn't necessarily require a visualization of the objects of refuge. So, we don't have to visualize the objects of refuge always as a preliminary. We can go for refuge and meditate on the benefits for refuge without doing that. But to enhance our mind of faith, to stabilize our practice of refuge, then visualizing the Buddha field and visualizing the field of accumulation or the objects of refuge, this can be a very enhancing thing. And so in terms of how to visualize the field of accumulation, I say field of accumulation rather than merit because it's really the 2 accumulations of merit and wisdom. There are different ways to do this. We can visualize this field in a vast way, and we can visualize it in a more simple way. So when we say field of accumulation, Geshe said, field is a very beautiful way of describing it. And a field is what we want to harvest, right? So you could think you want to plant a field of apples or oranges or bananas or something like that. So if you want to enjoy a nice harvest of oranges, then you have to do a lot of work. You have to put a lot of effort into establishing the seedlings and the field of that orange grove. So just like you need to plant that outer field and establish those conditions, then what we need to do with our mind is to plant the seeds to ripen the harvest of the two collections of merit and exalted wisdom. Yeah, so that's just like a field, right? It's just like that outer field, except the field here is our mind. So we said there's different ways to visualize these fields of accumulation, right? The simple one is known as the jewel all-in-one instruction. The jewel all-in-one instruction. And so this is the very meaningful one, but it's also the one that is the easiest, the most convenient to practice. So in this presentation, the jewel all-in-one, we only need to visualize one single object of refuge, and whether that is Vajrasattva, whether that is Buddha Shakyamuni, Venerable Tara, or whatever, we visualize that single Buddha figure with the awareness that they are, in essence, the embodiment of all lamas, all spiritual teachers, all yidams, all tutelary deities, all enlightened beings. And then there is a stacked visualization. So Geshe said, if any of you are familiar with the medicine Buddha practice, you will know the stacked visualization. So you might have like the main figure medicine Buddha, king of Vaidurya light, and the other medicine Buddhas in a vertical kind of configuration, one by one above him. And next is the assembly or the gathering visualization. So this is like going into a busy market where you just see kind of a crowd of people in a circular enclosure. It's a little bit like that. All of the refuge objects are on the same level together. And you can just visualize all of them within this circle, the gurus, the yidams, the Buddha figures, the dakas, dakinis, wisdom dharma protectors, and so forth. So in this particular sadhana of Vajrasattva, aspects of it are like the jewel all-in-one visualization. And then Geshe said there's a visualization of a refuge field complete with gurus and so forth, which very much is similar to the vast visualization of the objects of refuge in the Vajrayogini sadhana, for example. So let's do kind of a middling visualization of this. And you're going to visualize 5 seats. So one in the center and smaller ones in the 4 directions. In the center is, in essence, one's guru, but in the aspect of the holy Buddha Vajrasattva. To the left of Vajrasattva is our teacher, the holy Buddha Shakyamuni, Tongpa Chomden
어
Derwa.
데라 손지 강기 권이 와 봐라.
And we can imagine, we can visualize all around him the Buddhas of the three times, or we can imagine that he represents all of those Buddhas.
다 쇼지 될시 워로도 만도 되는 다그 손손 좀비용을 이더네 오다 던지기다 이도 뭐 권이 와 봐지.
And to the right, and Geshe said that, it changes sometimes. So have an open mind about it. But for our purposes, to the sorry. So for our purposes, to the right is Manjushri, the Buddha of wisdom. You can imagine him surrounded by other holy beings.
다루로 소소다 저 알레터네 소소 시레지 소소로 드라마 텔레터네 이도 강기 권이 와 봤더니 손으로 돈.
Yeah, so sorry. So now Geshe is filling that in. In the cases of other practices or based on personal preference, that doesn't have to be Manjushri. That could be Avalokiteshvara. That could be Tara, and so forth. So people have their different practices and their different preferences. That's totally fine. Pecha daborebe.
Yeah.
Okay. And so the cushion behind that central figure of Vajrasattva, the cushion behind, this is stacked with texts in the nature of light representing the holy Dharma jewel.
And
in front, you can visualize your root guru who has been kind to you in three ways. The one who you feel the most connection with, you can visualize him or her as the embodiment of all gurus, or you can visualize an assembly of the root and lineage gurus, the cushion in front of Vajrasattva. So just reading from the sadhana, so I'll give this is my preliminary translation in English. In the space in front of oneself is Guru Vajrasattva with the root and lineage gurus, meditational deities, the assembly of wisdom dharma protectors, and so forth. Yeah. So Geshe said that having read that, he said, when that comes to his mind reading that, it's like kind of the market assembly, right? Like kind of a circle configuration with all of them together. So the next part is the recitation of the refuge formula. It goes, I and all sentient beings, reaching the extent of space from this moment until we achieve the heart of precious enlightenment, we continuously go for refuge to the glorious holy gurus. And so then we imagine that as we recite this, we are prostrating to that cushion where the gurus are sitting, just in front of the central deity. Go for refuge to the complete Buddha Bhagavans. As we recite this, we imagine we offer prostration on the cushion to the left of the central figure, to the Buddha. Go for refuge to the holy Dharma. We imagine we offer prostration to the cushion holding the texts behind the central figure. Go for refuge to the Arya Sangha. So Geshe said this is an interesting one. So here you imagine offering the prostration to Manjushri or Avalokiteshvara as you visualized. In this case, Manjushri and Avalokiteshvara are divine aspect bodhisattvas, right? Not fully enlightened Buddhas in this case. They are divine aspect bodhisattvas, which represents, of course, the Arya Sangha jewel. And then you have refuge and bodhicitta. I go for refuge until enlightenment to the Buddha, Dharma, and Supreme Assembly. Through the merits I accumulate of generosity and so forth, may I achieve Buddhahood for the benefit of all beings. And so here we know what to meditate on, the two causes of common refuge, or if we have the third cause of great compassion, the three causes of uncommon Mahayana refuge. Jang sana? Jang dene nipati? Oh, yeah, yeah. Dene? Okay, so when we meditate on refuge, we can sort of divide the meditation into three parts, which makes it more effective. The first is a purification. The second is receiving the blessings. And the third is kind of like, I would describe it as entering into under refuge or coming under the protection of refuge. So imagine that His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, is giving a special teaching, but it's in a really tiny house, in a really small building. And imagine how fortunate you would feel if you were able to have a seat inside that room where he was teaching. When you have a feeling of good fortune like that, at being able to go for refuge to the triple gem, that is a measure of a good practice of refuge. And so combined with this, we need a special kind of bodhicitta that is connected with the practice of Tantra. And that mind of bodhicitta connected with the practice of Tantra is, in order to be of maximum benefit to sentient beings, I must enter the mandala and achieve the actualization of the state of Vajrasattva. So Geshe said that, because you need your time to relax and do your other activities, like an actual commitment to achieving this, really like deciding to do that instead of other things. That's kind of a big ask for all of us. So, yeah. Gonda, luchi. Rua lamigula, rua. Anga kanga ale, loso loso. Nitiki sentuchi kasane? Le, tse ringpo drum goyachi. Yep. So, one thing that we need to clarify here is that all of the four classes of Tantra can allow one to, in one body, one lifetime, achieve complete and perfect Buddhahood. The caveat is the three lower classes of Tantra require longevity-enhancing rituals to have a very long lifespan to achieve that, whereas highest Yoga Tantra, Anuttara Yoga Tantra, does not. It is possible in a normal human lifespan to achieve enlightenment. Yeah. So the three lower classes of Tantra, they require the yogi or yogini to engage in longevity-enhancing practices and achieve siddhis related to long life. And in that way, they are able to reach complete Buddhahood. However, the extraordinary quality of Anuttara Yoga, highest Yoga Tantra, is with the normal lifespan that one has, kind of whatever fixed it is, within that it is possible. It is possible to achieve complete enlightenment. So this is the extraordinary quality. This is the extraordinary quality of highest yoga tantra.
다 이나요. 다시 또 우리 뭐또 해 야래. 빼나 저지 별을 배배갈 배갈 아마지가 아니 걸어서 다니워지가 막 릴리 세치 리지라 손지바 야래. 에스케 저스티바레스.
But, you know, there's been debate over this matter. So, for example, when Lord Atisha was teaching in Tibet, another Lama sort of asked him, like, about the veracity of this claim of one lifespan, one normal human lifespan, in one lifetime achieving Buddhahood through Tantra. Is that a thing?
다 딜레텔라 저지가 드네 세치라 손지바요 리지라 손지바 매스 레트리 자유 로지야레스.
And according to the historical records, what Lord Atisha answered is Tsechikla res, luchikla yomares. In one lifetime, achieving Buddhahood is possible. In one body, achieving Buddhahood is not possible. So that was Atisha's answer. So yeah, that needs unpacking, and maybe slowly we'll get to that. So I was saying to Geshe, I didn't want him to leave you with that guy's teaser. So I said, what's the reason for this? And the reason, of course, is that the enlightenment in highest yoga tantra isn't achieved through this normal body. One has to achieve the state of the julu, the illusory body, and it is through that one reaches enlightenment. So that's the reason that he answered like that. Yeah. Los. Again? So there's reasons. Geshe said, you know, there's different angles. So there's a reason to say one lifetime, one body enlightenment possible. And there's also a reason to say one lifetime, yes, but one body, not really. You know, there's good reasons behind both statements. So the four boundless thoughts: may all beings come to possess happiness and the causes of happiness. May all beings be separated from the suffering and the causes of suffering. May all beings never be separated from the happiness that is without suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free of attachment and aversion, holding some close and others distant. So the holy beings advise us to enrich this practice of the four immeasurables, of the four boundless thoughts, by being specific. So when we pray for sentient beings to have happiness and the causes of happiness, we can say, may all sentient beings come to possess uncontaminated happiness and its causes. Similarly, when we pray for sentient beings to be separated from suffering and the causes of suffering, we can pray for them to be separated from the all-pervasive compounded suffering and its causes. And then we can enhance this: may all sentient beings be separated from the all-pervasive, never be separated from the uncontaminated happiness that is completely untouched by all-pervasive suffering. So all of the four boundless thoughts are extremely powerful, of course, right? All of those are extremely powerful things. But it is this fourth immeasurable: may all sentient beings never be separated from equanimity, the absence of attachment and aversion, holding some close and others distant. This specific immeasurable is very powerful because it is said to be the supreme form of giving. Practicing this mind is giving protection from fear.
아가서라와 어따때 지체티드 펩시 워시 오레디아레 나로스 단단 좀 린델 먹에도 마트도 내는 지파 강가 조대야데 코인 지파 용조대 니리 차도 주주고 소근디와 시워시 조레디아.
And this is very clear because look at our world right now. Look at all of the conflicts and wars being fought and the terrible suffering. Where does this come from? This comes from attitudes of attachment and aversion, holding some people close to us and othering other people as being far away from us. So if you think about it in that way, then this generosity of providing protection from fear, this is like the most powerful thing. So these four immeasurable or boundless thoughts are like the water and the fertilizer that is going to nurture our bodhicitta and bring it to perfection. And these are practiced in the context of both sutra and tantra. And within each of these four immeasurable thoughts, we can put four key points to enhance them even more. Yeah. Sangde sana? Younger sana? Solwa. Okay. Okay. So if we, so it works for all four of them, but if we take immeasurable love as an example, let's do that. Immeasurable love connected with aspiration is the first one. Immeasurable love connected with aspiration is the first one. Immeasurable love connected with prayer is the second one. Immeasurable love connected with the pure superior intention is the third one. And immeasurable love connected with supplication is the fourth one, right? So these are the four that fit into each of those four immeasurables. So, if when we have extra time for our practice, we cannot rush through the four immeasurables and enhance each of them with these 4 points, that can make it very rich. So the next one is for the sake of all mother sentient beings reaching the extents of space, in order to achieve their benefit, I must achieve the state of supreme and perfect enlightenment. For this practice, I will engage in the meditation-recitation of Vajrasattva. And so this is the special enhanced bodhicitta meditation that was mentioned. So if you wanted to kind of make this practice sort of a little bit vaster, right after this contemplation, you would insert a verse for receiving or renewing the bodhisattva vows. And so often we speak about accumulating merits and so forth through the practice of the 7 limbs. And remember, in Tantra, we also have the 7 limbs, but we give them a little bit of a different name. We call them the 7 purities, and most are the same, but there are some superficial differences. So we don't make the request for the turning of the Dharma wheel, and we don't make the request not to pass into paranirvana. And so what do we replace those with? We replace them with refuge and bodhicitta. So this becomes the practice of the 7 purities. So why don't we need to make the request to turn the Dharma wheel or never to pass into nirvana? Because we do a lot of tantric practice on the basis of the sambhogakaya, the enjoyment bodies of the Buddha. The enjoyment bodies of the Buddha, they don't pass away, and they kind of remain teaching the Dharma, turning the Dharma wheel spontaneously. So when the enjoyment body brought forth the bodhicitta, they promised to stay within samsara until it was empty of sentient beings and act for their benefit. So similarly, we don't need to request the not passing away or the turning of the Dharma wheel. And so also, like when we achieve our own Buddhahood, so di longkures. When we achieve our Buddhahood, out of the 3 bodies, we can think of like the main one as being the sambhogakaya, as being the enjoyment body. But it's said that actually a lot of beings, if they haven't achieved the Arya state, for example, they are not able to perceive the sambhogakaya, the enjoyment body necessarily. And then so from that, one manifests as the nirmanakaya, the emanation body, so that ordinary sentient beings can more easily be interacted with. And so then connected with that, then one receives the bodhisattva vows. So how that goes is one meditates on refuge, one confesses negativities, one rejoices in the merits of all beings. Then one makes the wishing or aspiring bodhicitta with the promise, and then one recites the verse for the engaging. Geshe added something, so I need it from the beginning again. Yeah. So refuge, confession of misdeeds, rejoicing in merits. Then the uncommon Mahayana refuge. Then the wishing or aspiring bodhicitta with the promise. Then engaging bodhicitta with the vows. So that is engaging bodhicitta. So Geshe is just explaining that if we receive these engaging bodhisattva vows, it is said that no matter what one is doing, when one is relaxing, when one is eating food, whatever activity one is doing, it is like there is a continuous rain of merits falling. Even when one is sleeping, there is a continuous rain of merits falling. Yeah, so it's almost unbelievable, but such are the benefits. Of course, bringing forth the aspiring bodhicitta with the promise, this is also very powerful. One accumulates great merit, but it doesn't have that continuous merit falling like rain during all of one's activities. With the with the aspiring bodhicitta with the promise, we have the practices to avoid the 4 causes of degeneration of that aspiration in this life, and avoiding the 4 causes of the degeneration of that aspiration in future lifetimes. Younger Sungdange? Samchewa. Samchewa sana? Sorry, Kailendi me parwa. Yeah. And then even before that aspiring bodhicitta with the promise. We have the mere aspiration or the mere wishing bodhicitta. That's still very beneficial, but fewer benefits than that aspiration with the promise.
다 길레도 드디어 살을 다 도지도 돈바시리 코라 할레비 다 같이 모는 첨부적이 요아레스.
And so, of course, the vows and Samaya's commitments connected with bodhicitta in particular, these are considered very, very important.
돈치세나 소소 길치 드기세나 길레야데 드비찬이 돈치세리 요아레스.
So, Samaya relates to the spiritual promises or commitments that we made and a determination to fulfill them. If we make those commitments and maintain a determination to fulfill them, we are said to possess Samaya. So there's two ways to explain Samaya. One is a little bit more open-minded and relaxed, and the other one is, I don't know how to describe what Geshe said. Full on. Let's describe it as full on. The other way to describe it is full on. So damtsik means word. So we can think of damtsik, Samaya, as related to the words of the holy beings. The words related to the advice and requests of the holy beings. The other one, the tsi, is understood not as word, but more like to burn, which is, in other words, commitments that if we do not honor them, the positive potentials of our mind will be burned away. So the tsi here is more understood as burn rather than word. So Geshe said, think about that, right? If you have a seed that you want to plant and somehow it gets burnt by a fire, it's not very likely to sprout, is it? So that's another way of thinking about it. So the samayas are like the things that you're promising to do, in other words. The vows, these are the things that you promise to avoid. So the vows are like objects of abandonment. So these are like karegyugicha. Yeah. Right. So where we are up to this point is like the preparatory practices that we need for the Vajrasattva meditation to come out well. And so whether the practice of Tantra comes out well, then it also depends very much upon the practices of method and wisdom. So we need to conjoin the practice of Tantra, right, to ensure the practice of Tantra is infused with method and wisdom. Otherwise, just reciting some words, doing some visualizations and so forth, there are many sort of non-Buddhist yogic traditions that do the same thing. So doing deity yogas, visualizing the deity in the mantra, doing various physical exercises, manipulating the winds and so forth, all of these can also be found in those non-Buddhist yogic traditions. Sorry, so we have a notification that's blocking all of your lovely faces. I just want to turn that off. So just there we go. Okay. Yeah.
제이 찬에 세나 뭐도 다도 시라니 찬에 다 녀래 타바 야쇼 절런도도 만스도 디투하레스.
So it's really whether the practice of Tantra becomes a cause for achieving that supreme liberation or enlightenment is really determined by how much it is infused with these practices of method and wisdom.
오야 다음에 저서 로니 깨지게 도제셈베 깨지 빠져 세계지 조시 디디스 용근데 왔어.
So then next we have the instantaneous self-generation. In an instant, I arise as Vajrasattva.
단데 리라쇼 테세나 뭔데 단 라메리 얘는 근데 그슬 놓치 디디지 추거세기 말이야.
And so here, here, if we were talking about Anuttara or highest yoga tantra, within that instantaneous self-generation, you would want to have a very brief kind of contemplation of taking the three bodies into the path.
그래서 다 단다티 자지 계제 이사 드리 초계제 뭐요 말이야. 다 이나요 다 나서 시다비 갈라. 소노토 이갈라. 단계 초지 시시다요라 왔어.
Right.
대도 뒤에는 소소가 다시 원이 막
So here it's more a Kriya Tantra tradition. So we don't necessarily meditate on taking the three bodies into the path, but what we can meditate on is the field of refuge dissolving into us, the field of refuge coming to our crown and dissolving into us. Then tompanila jorwa.
로로 소소가 링아이 있어도 아니 사이 때다가 링아이 있어 뭐 예매도 저소 손바다 대할이 같이 못 지서요.
And then after we imagine them dissolving into us, we imagine that our ordinary body, speech, and mind become mixed inseparably, become of one essence with the holy body, holy speech, and holy mind of the objects of refuge. And in also it's very important to imagine that the deity that has dissolved into us and their holy mind is also the essence of the holy mind of all of the gurus, yedams, buddhas, and so forth. For many practitioners, right, just doing this visualization and mixing one's mind and so forth with those of the holy beings is enough to bring forth realization. And so this is known as the definitive guru yoga practice, the definitive guru yoga practice. And so after that mixing, then one imagines that having become inseparable with the holy body, speech, and mind of the Guru deity, immeasurable bliss, joy arises, and then one contemplates and dissolves into emptiness. And as one contemplates emptiness, one does this as an antidote to clear away, especially ordinary appearance and the clinging or grasping to ordinary appearance. Yeah. Listen. Yeah. 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 Oh, metok rimotina nangla. Right. Yes, hakusun. Yeah. So Geshe said, we can think about this a little bit like a snowman or a snow woman or whatever. So imagine the snow person. I have to be careful about it. Someone said, Ngodrup, don't use so much gendered language. So the snow person, my apologies. No, it is important. The snow person, and within the snow person, you've drawn little eyes and maybe some flowers and so forth adorning them. When the snow person melts, all of the things that you've drawn into them, those also melt. So when the snow person melts, all of the other things melt.
Oh, that then noji roro soso kaze tata poget tamabe ta ngaji yar was tamabe ngato liji yar was o ta te kaze tata tumba ni sono to vegala
Yep.
Ane tamapa azujani meba zo go ya mare ro meba
nangwa tamapa di ro
tumba yapo sono to sona
right
tamapa de would go to no bares.
So just like that, when we contemplate the ordinary I or the self and its emptiness, and imagine that this dissolves into emptiness, You can think that's like the snow person. Then together with that, the ordinary appearance would be like the eyes and the flowers that were drawn into the snow to adorn it. They are going to dissolve away when you melt away the self anyways. So the contemplation of emptiness here, it is not different from the contemplation of emptiness in highest yoga tantra. It's the same thing. Sorry, just give me more. My apologies. Yeah, sorry. Hay fever, Ngodrup for a change today. Remember, the essence of Tantra practice is the apprehending mind of wisdom realizing emptiness arises as the deity. Yes. So out of the various holy beings of Tibet, within those various holy beings, it was a particular one named Yongzen Yeshe Gyaltsen who stood out even from among the most exalted. So a Dharma friend asked Yongzen Yeshe Gyaltsen, Semdi tompani sunge gi semdi la shawa, so the apprehended aspect of the mind realizing emptiness arising as the deity. What does this actually mean? Yeah. So that mind realizing emptiness, how is it that this arises in the form of a deity? When Yongzen Yeshe Gyaltsen answered, the Lama who posed him the question wasn't satisfied. In fact, he felt uncomfortable with the answer. So the more to tell about that as we go on, but not a lot of time today, so we'll continue. So to arise as the deity, remember the analogy. It's like you have an old house where you want to put a new house. The first step is to take down that old house and cart away all of the remnants, all of the rubbish. Only then can you construct the new house. So to arise as the deity, then we need to purify, using emptiness, these ordinary contaminated samsaric aggregates that we possess. Yes. And this is compared a little bit to a snake that sheds its skin, And then from here, one begins to arise oneself in the self-generation of Vajrasattva. So when we explain, right, we explain more elaborately. Geshe said that this is the style of teaching Tantra. One explains more elaborately, but then when one actually does this in practice, one can do it very succinctly. So why does one need to arise as the self-generation of the deity? And part of the reason is because, well, if you think about the sadhana, you have the self-generation and the front generation, right? You're going to make offerings and so forth and accomplish activities and do this for the front generation. But to do that, you need to be in the form of the deity yourself. So this is the reason for the self-generation. And so the reason for this is, of course, if we make the offerings and we offer the torma, we can't just do that as an ordinary being because we don't possess the power of blessing, right? That's why we need to do the self-generation.
아니 라메이는 노체 돈이 다시 라자지 자기야레스.
So in the case of highest yoga tantra, we would perform the blessings of the tormas and the offerings perhaps by sprinkling the inner offering, right? That's how we would do that. In the case of a kriya tantra, of action tantra like here, we would do this on the basis of the vows, of the bumpa. Sorry. And so, of course, in order to bless it then, before that, we need to dispel obstacles and hindrances, right? And so to chase away the obstacles to the offerings before we bless them, we can use the amrit, the nectar, within the vase. So as one recites the mantra Om Amrita Kundali Hana Hana Hum Pe, one sprinkles the water where the offerings are, and one imagines that this chases away the hindrances. So think about this. If you want to get rid of the obstacles to blessing the offerings, this has to be done on the basis of transforming the water in the vase into exalted nectar. An ordinary being cannot accomplish that transformation. This is yet another reason that one needs to arise as the deity. So then if one does that rising as the deity, especially on the basis of bringing forth bodhicitta and a contemplation on emptiness, then the blessing is even more profound. So these kind of steps for blessing the vase and the vase water are very similar to the steps of blessing the inner offering. So in this particular sadhana, you just have the mantra Om Vajra Amrita Kundali Hana Hana Hum Pe, but you don't have the steps of visualization for blessing the vase and the vase water. But actually, ideally, you would. Om Beda Amada Gandala Hana Ana Hum Be Om Sambhava Shanda Savada Masambhava Shanda Hum Tumbani de Cho Tumbe Ngole Ole Rimboche Ne Jacha No Jono Omage de Shawale Shu Lazile Tube Che Jazemeto Tube Mamet Sha Shazi Romano Tuja Tuba Meba no Ka Dunyo Basaba Me de Vacheva Jeshewa Jo Oma Ago No Dandin no Oma Ago Pa de Pi Pe de Be Alo So this is the a blessing of the offering. So I'll just read out what Geshe recited. Om Sarva Buddha. Om Sarva Buddha Shuddha Sawadama Subhava Shuddhang. Everything becomes emptiness. From Oms arise jeweled vessels vast, inside of which there are Oms. These Oms melt into light and transform into the offering substances, bathing water for the feet, flowers, incense, lights, fragrant perfume, food, and music. Reaching to the extent of space, they give rise to the generation of uncontaminated great bliss. And then you have Om Agam Pajam Pupe Dupe Aloke Nui de Shabda Hung. So if you understand the principle of this offering here, you'll understand the principle for many, many different practices, actually. And so Geshe really encourages people who are doing these practices to have a Vajra bell and a bumpa, a vase at home. And he brought them here so you could see them, but ideally the ones you use in your practice, you keep these hidden. Yeah. So the great holy beings, right, the great lamas, they have a practice. They'll have like a bumpa and a vajra and a bell that they'll use in a public ceremonial context, and then they'll have like a bumpa vase, a vajra, and a bell that they keep hidden in their room that they use for their personal practice. And so the same is with one's mala, with one's rosary. You can have one that you use on public occasions, and you should have a second one for retreat and personal practice. And ideally, you would keep that hidden and protected in a cloth bag, for example.
단 니네 제발 로또 지시서는 뭐지 하건도 요 일단 눈을 같이 뭐 시요아레스 조지 대하고 가레스.
So then, in terms of blessing the offerings, we could say that there are 4 key points.
단 다시게 제발 이날에 다시게 제발 이날에 지하고 사서는 로또 지바레스.
And if you understand the way to bless and make the offerings to the front generation, of course, it's the exact same process to bless and make the offerings to the self generation. So they're transferable.
단 디 제발 쇼 차지 계시지. 제발 쇼 요는 되게 쇼 매나 우선은 또 요.
So Geshe said, for our purposes here, as you watch, you're going to imagine that, I guess I'm going to get sprinkles. You're going to imagine the offerings, just these offering bowls that you see laid out in front of the Buddha behind me. So first one picks up the Vajra. Then one picks up the bell, one holds them in one hand. Then one separates out the Vajra and bell, the bell into the left hand, the Vajra into the right. The Vajra represents method and the bell represents exalted wisdom. Yeah, and so then method is the first practice we recollect. So one picks up the Vajra first, then one picks up the bell with the right hand, and then one separates the bell into the left hand. You're not supposed to, actually, Geshe didn't say it, you're not supposed to, he said you're not allowed to pick up the Vajra and the bell separately. You have to pick them both up with the right hand, hold them together, and then separate out the bell into the left hand. The reason for this is it creates the blessing to be able to practice a simultaneous practice of inseparable method and wisdom with one mind in one moment. So then we have the clearing, the purifying. Somebody karere? Chewa, dache giche.
Yeah.
The generation, anijipati, and the blessing. Mm-hmm. So the clearing, the purifying, the generation, and the blessing. Mm-hmm. So the first one that we recite is the clearing. Okay, so that's the clearing.
This one?
Yeah, Jesus. Yeah, so that's clearing. So keep in mind that at this point one has generated oneself as Vajrasattva, right? So as one kind of engages in the practice of clearing, one imagines that so ningne özer dro özer di lamo den so yoro. Yeah. Yeah. Dusu kere gi lamo chi. Konso özer la tene chilo la drogire konso ning chik pone drongye. Nganse boko mato. Lamo chik mato mendu. Okay. Özer la yamendu. Namgin semla özer dro tene dinso lama la tene. Right. So from one's heart, so from one's heart as the deity, countless light rays emanate, and one can imagine one sort of Amrita holding goddess or many Amrita holding goddesses, and these chase away all obstacles and interferes. And this mantra is like the mantra of the Amrit or the holy nectar, transforms water into nectar. So it's a little bit different than the process in highest yoga tantra. Yeah. So one can imagine that as one sprinkles this, any sort of the obstacles or hindering spirits and so forth that are around the offerings, they are kind of chased away and they fly away like a flock of birds. Their bodies seem to get smaller and smaller as they fly away. Tompa ni du jur. So the Om Amrita Kundali Hana Hana Humpe, this is the clearing. Tompa ni du gyur is the purifying. That Tompa ni du gyur means everything becomes emptiness. Purified of what? Ordinary appearance and the grasping of that ordinary appearance, as well as an incorrect perception of inherent existence. So now the generation. Right. So even though the offerings may be nominally laid out in your visual field, remember that meditation-wise, you've dissolved everything into emptiness. So the offerings need to be generated again. Right. So we imagine that this mind realizing emptiness, light rays emanate out, and these first generate the vessels. In other words, the bowls or so forth. Ale, sorry. Ale, sorry. So from the lights at one's heart, 8 ohms come first. 8 letter ohms. So although it looks like there's 8 ohms where the bowls would be, that ohm actually represents one's mind apprehending emptiness. Those ohm transform into beautiful jeweled vessels. So vessel in this sense like a bowl, but Geshe said don't visualize them as small like here. You want to visualize them as immeasurably vast. Because you want to imagine that there's enough in there of the substances that the gurus, the yidams, and indeed all sentient beings can partake of the offering. So this is the generation of the vessel, or the generation of the container. So again, within those 8 containers appear 8 white letter ohms, which are a manifestation of one's mind contemplating emptiness. Those melt into light and they transform into the various offerings, the 2 waters, fragrance, food, flowers, incense, light, and so forth. And so this is the so we had the generation of the containers, those vessels, and now we have the generation of the contents, the offering substances. It's om, everybody. It's not whom. I'm sorry. It's om. Om. Not om lapang. I think I said om, but if I didn't, my profuse apologies. Yeah. Yep. So remember how we conceptualize these offerings. It's the 2 waters, the 5 actual offerings to the 5 senses, music, and so forth. That's how they're described. So then after we recite that, as Geshe recites Om Agam Pajam Pupe Dupe Aloke Gende Nui De Shabda Ahum, this is the blessing mantra for each of those offering substances. Yep. So if we want to think of like kind of an ordinary example to relate these activities to, what can we think of? We can think that you're inviting a very special guest to your home for a really special meal. And up to now, what you've done is you've prepared all of the food. So all of the food up to this point has now been sort of chopped up and heated and prepared.
다 단단한 소지도 전지 선바 된듯이 그래요. 이제 대 마시비게라. 어디
Yeah.
뭐 답이죠. 자리서야
So
그래서.
we want to invite the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas to partake in this offering. So it's just like before they arrive, you would want to make sure the preparations are very excellent, just as you would for an important guest.
다 제가 피해야 돼. 리라버린도 왔어.
And now the actual presenting of the offerings to the holy beings.
드시엘 제가 피해야 돼. 파세고도야. 데고 바다.
Oh, right.
드시엘 파피기요나.
Right. So if you're offering to the front generation, when you're making the mudra, you snap your fingers out. I'm sorry, I'm not very elegant, but you snap your fingers outwards. You snap the fingers outwards. If you're doing it to the self generation, you snap your fingers inwards. From one, so to the front generation, as one does the mudra, from one's heart, countless various offering goddesses emanate, and they present the offerings to the holy being. So Geshe said, if you've noticed a difference in the mudras, this is because these are the mudras for Kriya practice, which are different from the mudras we use in highest yoga tantra. So we actually need to know both. Really. And the reason that you see like these kind of differences are because the offering goddesses in highest yoga tantra, they're often said to possess 4 arms, whereas in Kriya or action tantra they possess 2 arms. So for example, when you're offering the perfumed water, you don't use the 2 hands together. You have, because you only have 2 hands rather than 4, you have the vessel where the perfumed water is, and then you kind of do it like this, rubbing it on the skin. When you're doing highest yoga tantra, you can have both hands spreading the perfumed water on, because the other 2 hands, because you got 4, are holding the vessel. So you also notice when you bless the offerings, you recite the mantra for the offering with Gonda, humpe, and then pulpepa kaplala omso. And then when you offer them, it just ends with soha. And so Geshe says he's not sure that every single deity will be the same, but most will follow this pattern. Right. So then after one recites the offerings, then one recites this verse of a praise, Bhagavan Vajrasattva, the one who purifies the negativities of myself and all my graders without exception. Geshe says, as one recites this verse, one can imagine that one's offering it to the self generation, to oneself as Vajrasattva. One can also imagine that one is offering it to the front generation. And so the reason that we have to emanate the offering goddesses is especially important with the self generation, because you're not going to want to do the self generation offering to themselves, right? That's not so beautiful. So it's more beautiful to emanate the offering goddesses and have them make the offering to oneself as the deity. Yeah. So when we say self-generation, we do offer to oneself, but one does this by the means of the generation of the offering goddesses. The praise, Geshe said, in the context of self-generation yoga, you're allowed to praise yourself. So you don't have to emanate a goddess to recite the praise or anything. You're allowed to recite the praise yourself. And so how does one kind of reckon that? One thinks that it's when you offer praise to oneself as the self-generation, it's like the practice of rejoicing in your own positive deeds.
Omeda Amada Gandala Hombe, Omasoba was and the Savadamasoba was and the Tumani the Jetumingole, Polepemata Ali, the Ejigojit in the Rungi, Seni, Hunde, the Jing, Avitavara Hungi, and Batelegazeti, so the user Jabala, the Jesamba Kadoka was Haji, Shani, E. Dojetukanzaji, or Travukit, but other Rumboji, and Sento Pesce Genji, about Shadow Jubati, Tuka, the Eat and the Hunikabo, the Hunikabo, Tipana, Telegazeti.
So how about it, Joseph?
Dine
how about it?
Yes.
Call. Okay, sorry, I just wanted to make sure I followed where we were. That went so fast. So, Om Sobhava Shuddha Sarvadhamma Sobhava Shuddho Hang, everything becomes emptiness. From within emptiness, from palm, a lotus emerges, upon which from arises a moon disk, upon which is your mind as a hum. This hum then transforms into a 5-spoked vajra, marked at its hub with a hum. From this, light rays emanate, accomplishing the two purposes, and these gather back and dissolve into the Vajra. This Vajra then transforms into solitary Vajrasattva with a white-colored body, one face, 2 hands, right hand holding a Vajra, left a bell, adorned with all of the beautiful garments and ornaments, having the marks and signs of enlightenment. So then this is, of course, di dachere dunjere, dachere. Oh, right. So with any kind of description of self-generation. Okay. Ni chiwa di mare. Nganso dorje sempa di nganso dachere dunjere dingen chiwa re. Tandarang la ya di. Right. So this is nganso yangyar kesun karin sen nganso kechi chongche ra. Okay. So I just wanted to kind of orient you where you were, because I think this is important. This generation of Vajrasattva is the self-generation. You did a very brief instantaneous self-generation at the beginning, but one is now doing an extensive self-generation. Yabukomason konda. Karichene, Gimsen? Yangyar, eh? So Geshe said how you reckon this is your instantaneous self-generation, you rose as the deity. You kind of diminish the divine pride as you contemplate emptiness, and then you arise as the deity again. So then as we recite Om Sobhava Shuddha Sarvadhamma Sobhava Shuddho Ham Tompa Ni Du Jor, this is the cleansing and the purifying. So one gets rid of the hindrances, and then as one contemplates emptiness, one gets rid of the grasping at the self of persons and phenomena by contemplating the two selflessnesses. And so ideally, if one had time, then one would engage in the 6 deities of a Kriya Tantra practice here. So these 6 deities are the emptiness deity, the deity of letters, the deity of sound, the deity of mudra, the deity of form, and the deity of signs. So the actual self-generation and front generation, these are the deity of form. So from that emptiness, so we dissolved everything into emptiness, and from that emptiness, we imagine a syllable pam. That melts into light, transforms into a beautiful lotus. That lotus has upon it a letter A. The A melts into light and transforms into a moon disk sitting upon the lotus. And one imagines that one's mind appears as a white letter hum sitting upon that lotus moon disk. This melts into light and transforms into a 5-spoked Vajra, which is marked with a hum at its hub. One imagines that the light rays emanate from this Vajra, accomplishing the two purposes: offerings to the holy beings and the purification of sentient beings. So accomplishing all of the purposes of sentient beings and making offerings to all of the Buddhas of the 3 times. Those light rays then dissolve back into the Vajra. And then one arises in the form of the deity. So it melts into light, transforms into Vajrasattva, one face, 2 hands, holding the bell, Vajra, and so forth. So this is the actual deity yoga of the self-generation. And one can imagine that around the white hum at one's heart as Vajrasattva, there is the 100-syllable mantra that rotates as one recites. Sorry, ngachu chiki karin sen konso denden yongire gacha gatamba. Nganso medegi dinso dang ine nganso Vajrasattva keswa denden nganso de bakari jangire karin sen okay, yeah, the avore sevoro. So then so then as one recites the 100-syllable mantra Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupaleha, etc., the light rays emanate from that 100-syllable mantra, and they completely fill your body. So you are Vajrasattva, but you've set divine pride aside for a moment. You set the divine pride aside, and you imagine as the light rays and nectars fill your body that there is the upward dispelling of unclean substances as the upward purification, or the downward dispelling of unclean substances as the downward purification, or the dispelling in a heap. Yeah. So kyo. Sozo tamapache. Okay. So Geshe said that the question I asked him was to make a problem. It wasn't to make a problem. It was because I thought it was a question that some of you might have. So I'll tell you the question and you let me know. So I said, you're Vajrasattva here, right? So I said, it's going to be incongruous to purify this visualization of your body if you're already Vajrasattva. And Geshe said, yes, that is actually true. So you have 2 options here. The first option is what Geshe already mentioned, which is to set aside the divine pride and just continue the visualization. The other one you can do, which is explained in the Vajrasattva practice according to the Chakra Samvara Tantra, is you can imagine yourself, you kind of turn off the self-generation. You can imagine your ordinary body with Vajrasattva sitting at the crown. With Vajrasattva sitting at the crown. The lights and nectars fill your ordinary body, and you purify based on that. So the absolute supreme explanation of the Vajrasattva practice, including the visualization of the downward dispelling purification, the upward dispelling purification, and the dispelling in a heap purification, is contained in the exalted Akusherab Gyatso's commentary on the Chakra Samvara practice. There is no commentary better than this.
예데메데 핀데시 마추와케 자마레스 이나라 이데초 라셰 치에데요 알아스
Yeah.
이나이도 제세미뇰레 제거요 알아스
Right, Demchok Ketsarer,
yeah
right?
yeah
So Geshe said, there's a lot of explanation here in Akusherab Gyatso's commentary, because of course, if you're doing the Vajrasattva in the context of the Chakra Samvara practice, you've generated yourself as Haruka Chakra Samvara. So how do you relate this to the divine pride, or visualizing on the crown and the downward dispelling, the upward dispelling, and so forth? All of that is discussed.
다 된다 치바레 제데 가와이나 라메이나 샤지이나 소소 라셰네 뇰레 제요 요르다 메바 마레스
So we have to be absolutely clear whether one is practicing Vajrasattva in the context of a highest yoga tantra yidam, such as Chakra Samvara, or whether, as here, one is practicing it in the context of Kriya Tantra, the visualization of oneself as Vajrasattva with the mantra garland at the heart filling up with light rays and nectars, purifying upwards and downwards. This is absolutely done and is perfectly fine to do.
오탈라메 공원도 들이 토요나 소소 라시에 드네 오네 오타 라이 가자데 마테스 자 오타마 비노와테 테지 다시 시티시엔다 오타냐라 아니 녀모 도제돈데 도제세미뇰레 제요 알아스
So, for example, if one has received a highest Yoga Tantra empowerment, or a great empowerment of this deity, one does the self-generation in the form of Vajrasattva. One sort of dials down the divine pride, and then with Vajrasattva's body imagines the light rays and nectars dispelling upward, dispelling downward, and purifying in that way, combined with one's contemplation on the four opponent powers. I can't go as fast as, I don't speak as fast as Geshe does.
답변은 시월을 저기를 도대고 쉬워요 알아스
Yeah.
도제셈비클리 차손에 저기에서 파 가사 간을 파 저기에서 잡아만이 소속이 아니 시원에 마슈
Di wama token di samotana tigre, di lagurwa.
다때 관계소는 또 줘라
Yeah. So the other visualization, and Geshe said maybe this visualization is going to be more effective for most of us. And also, this visualization can be done if you don't have a highest yoga tantra or a 2-day grade initiation, is the visualization of yourself. You think about your ordinary body and you imagine Vajrasattva at the crown. And from Vajrasattva's holy body, the hung at his heart, and the 100-syllable mantra, light rays and nectars descend and they kind of go into your crown aperture and fill up your body. You can visualize like that.
그래서 첩바이는 슈첨보 주바 노지가 내데 디저 간디 소소 리그 메데와 세 강이 간디 지여바 이나 바쳐도 지바 디저 바쳐도 지바 파 괜히 대바노지 마테소
And we can imagine that it's like a really forceful jet stream of nectar that is pushing through our body, pushing through our central channel, which we can visualize as like a pipe that is clogged. Through the force of this purifying nectar, all of the negativities, obscurations, degenerated commitments, and their imprints are completely cleared away. So that's the downward dispelling visualization. We imagine that the nectar kind of pushes through, right? Like really forceful water through a pipe, and all of the unclean substances representing our negativities are pushed out through the feet.
Yeah.
The other way is the upward dispelling visualization. So we imagine that the lights and nectars fill up our body, slowly fill it up from bottom to top, like you're filling a bottle with water, like you're filling a bottle. As the body fills up, all of the negativities, the impure substances, they kind of sit on top of that water as it fills up. And then this way they are pushed out the crown of the head, and the negativities are dispelled that way. Ningla pungyerero. Yep. So the dispelling in a heap visualization, you imagine that the lights and the nectars kind of rotate in your body and they gather the negativities represented as unclean substances into a heap. And the dispelling in the heap visualization is like if you are collecting some ash or dust or something and then you blow very forcefully like that, it's completely dispelled and you can't identify even a single particle. So it's like that. So one imagines one blows away the heap and it dissolves like a rainbow into the sky. So these kind of purifications, the dispelling in a heap visualization, and also practices such as the tonglen, the taking and giving practices, there are so many stories of people with very severe illnesses, mental and physical, that were healed on the basis of these practices. So these are the main visualizations associated with this practice. So in this way, Geshe said, and by the way, we're only about halfway through the sadhana, but Geshe said we've covered the main visualization, so maybe he's satisfied to end here. And of course, there's also commentary Geshe could give as to the meaning of the Vajrasattva mantra. So if folks are interested in that, maybe we could do it another time. So another thing to mention here is that the emanation of the light rays with the offering goddesses holding the offerings and so forth, and then the reabsorption. This is an uncommon feature of Lama Tsongkhapa's lineage. He says reabsorbing those light rays is extremely important. What's the reason for this? Because reabsorbing the light rays into the heart becomes an imprint type cause for being able to gather all of the winds into the central channel during the completion stage practice of highest yoga tantra. And also using the light rays and the nectars visualized together is also considered very important. And the reason we have the light rays and the nectars are because these create imprints for the two attainments of highest yoga tantra, both the julu, the illusory body, and the öse, the clear light. So Geshe said, think about, we have these objects of attainment, like the illusory body, the clear light. These little imprints that we're doing through these visualizations and awarenesses, these are like little stones that we're piling one on top of the other, like stairs that are going to help us reach those attainments. So also we can think of the offerings as being in essence emptiness, but in aspect the individual offering substances. This is a way to create an imprint for understanding emptiness. And also as we offer these various offerings to please the six senses, we imagine that the recipients of the offering generate great bliss. This is very important. Yeah, so we talked a little bit about which of the six senses these are offered. That's important to remember. So the consultation. Okay, so so do people remember where the flowers are offered? Do you remember where the flowers are offered? Dave, go ahead. It's which part of the body of the deity you're offering to? The head. Yes, that's correct. Yes. And do you remember why, Dave? I can't. There's no sound. You have to.
This represents the whole form aggregate.
Which aggregate?
Form.
The form aggregate. The suki pumbores. So aren't your hands and your feet also part of the form aggregate?
Of course, yes.
He's teasing you. Don't take him serious. Yeah, he's like, our hands have form too, right? Right. So out of the flowers, right, in terms of the six sense faculties, they're offered to the body sense faculty, right? He said, remember our discussion. I can't remember when this is. I remember it vaguely. He said, remember, we think we usually offer the flowers to the eye sense faculty, but it's actually the body, the tactile sense faculty. Regja double redua. So why don't we offer the flowers to the eye sense faculty? The reason for this is because it's the lamp, it's the light that's offered mainly to the eye sense faculty. So michik labswa karinsena nganso janchuk sempa karpo de la yere. So Ryan, I saw your text answer of the white bodhicitta at the crown. This is correct. Yes. It's the white bodhicitta at the crown is kind of held within this part of the body. And Geshe said the white bodhicitta is considered the essence of the body, right? The most distilled essence of the body or of form. So this is why we offer the flower garland here. So this is like kind of the main sort of like a distilled substance of the body. And also as we practice Tantra, working with these white drops is going to be very important for the arising of great bliss. So anyways, whatever sadhana you're doing, whenever you are making the offerings, whether to the self-generation or the front generation, you must imagine the recipient experiences great bliss. This is very important. So Geshe said, sorry, we didn't cover the full sadhana extensively, but he thinks we did an okay job covering some basic points. So kind of clearing, purifying, generating, and blessing the offerings, these 4 points, keep those in mind. Those will hold to every practice. So even though like what you're using to bless is different, like in highest yoga tantra, it's the inner offering, but these 4 points still hold. So they really can apply everywhere. So if you've understood that, you've understood a big chunk of the deity yoga practice, actually. So thank you very much. We are going to briefly dedicate the merits. Jangjo Zemjo Rinpoche Maje Banam Jeju Ji Chewa Nyamba Meba Yang Gone Gondu Bewa Sho Tongni Tawa Rinpoche Maje Banam Jeju Ji Chewa Nyamba Meba Yang Gone Gondu Bewa Sho Jambe Bao Jigda Kemba Dan Kundu Zambo Deon Dejinte Deda Kungi Jesu Dalo Chi Gewa Dida Tamshi Rabdungo Dusun Shebi Gewa Tamshi Gi Ngowa Gangla Chodu Ngabade Dagi Gewe Tsawa Dikun Kyan Zambo Choji Rabdungo Wagi Kanri Rawe Korwe Jinganti Pendan Dewa Madu Jongwe Ne Chenre Ziwon Tenzin Jatso Yi Shape Zide Badu Tengyo Chi. So imagine that through our practice, the accumulation of the merit, the positive potential today, as well as through the blessing of the holy deity, Vajrasattva, that all of the wars, conflicts, illnesses, and so forth in the world, that these are completely cleared away, that the evil or unwholesome thoughts possessed by the 6 types of sentient beings within samsara are completely cleared away, and that they only give rise to thoughts of supreme loving kindness.
마로스이나 로조 뇨레 소마 노지타 뇨레 타시바시네 다테 세지게 버스바 더야지.
So also may all of our own hopes and aspirations for our own study and practice of the Dharma be completely realized so that we can be of the best possible benefit to the welfare of sentient beings. So we'll pause there. Triwarwa. So Geshe said, as usual. So I said, is there questions? So he said, as usual, with Tantra, we won't have questions now, but you're very welcome to email me your questions. So I don't know, Dave, if you can put my email up there for folks. It's kedrup@lamayeshiling.org. And I spell the last letter of my name with a P rather than with a B. So you're very welcome. And I am getting a lot better at answering timely as school kind of fades off. So Geshe-la's parting advice for you, for all practitioners of Tantra, is that learn one sadhana really well. Receive the commentary and learn one sadhana really well. And then use what you have learned about that sadhana to apply to your other practices. Similarly, in the practice of sutra, if you learn the lamrim, the graduated stages of the path to enlightenment presentation, if you take that as the foundation stone, then any teaching that you receive from any of the unmistaken lineages of Vajrayana Buddhism, you will be able to conceptualize that. That will be very helpful. So this is his advice. So in the Gelug tradition, right, we speak about Lama Tsongkhapa as kind of the founding teacher. And then he has the graduated stages of the path presentation. When we have time, we can meditate on that extensively. When we don't have time, we can recite a prayer such as the foundation of all qualities. But all of the various lineages, right, they have these graduated path presentations as well. But he recommends the foundation of all qualities because it's only really kind of 2 pages. And if we have a regular habit of reciting that, the structure of the path is going to become very familiar to us. So Geshe says he's not insisting foundation of all good qualities. If there's another text from the Nyingma, the Kaju, or the Sakya tradition that really inspires your mind, that is also brief and contains the essence, you can absolutely recite that as well. There's no problem. Why does he advise this? Because we don't know how long we have left in this life. We don't know what we're going to necessarily be able to accomplish in terms of realization. But if we do this as a practice, at the very minimum, we'll have established a deep imprint for the entire stages of the path to enlightenment within our mind stream. And that is a very good thing. And similarly, if we learn even a brief deity sadhana really, really well and receive commentary on that, when we can apply that knowledge to all the other deity sadhanas. So what we want to avoid doing is each new deity and each new empowerment that comes along, we're like super enthusiastic about this one, and okay, this is the one I'm going to do, this is my chosen deity, but then a few months later another empowerment or deity practice goes on, we're like, okay, this is actually the one I'm going to do. If you keep changing every time a new one comes around, you won't build that basis of stability. So really kind of choose one, really kind of according to your needs, your heart, your affinity, and learn that really well, then expand to many different things. So just take one as your main practice, learn it really well, but then of course, as you have time, enrich yourself with knowledge of other practices. This is the way to proceed. And also understanding that people have different capacities and affinities, right? We see holy beings that practiced only one deity and realized the path based upon that. We see holy beings that recommend the practices of various deities, and through practicing various, they realize the path, right? So everyone's different. So Geshe is giving general advice. He's not trying to say this is best for everybody. Whatever he says, you always have to weigh it according to your own experience of your own affinities and capacities. You have to be independent. What we want is a confidence and a knowledge in our mind of the path to proceed according to the sutra system from now until enlightenment as revealed by the Buddha is this. And the path to proceed by means of Tantra from now until enlightenment as taught by the Buddha is this. We want to know that. Also, as the benefit of engaging with the practice for a long time, in the beginning, right, we have to read from the paper and kind of learn each of the words and the visualizations, and it's like a recitation practice. Eventually, it becomes a practice of bringing things forth in the mind. We may be reading things and reciting them, but because of familiarity, the mind is spontaneously arising and very engaged with them. So thank you very much. So with a happy mind, Geshe is going to leave it here. And I guess we'll see you next Sunday if you're free. Thanks so much, everybody.
Jenang.